Hey everyone, Jessica Morrison, realtor with FP Tucker Company. Today we sit down with Ann O'Brien, and she has a nonprofit that's extra special and unique to Carmel. And thank you so much for coming on this afternoon. Who are you and what is this nonprofit about?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to share about it. We have officially formed a nonprofit. It's called Create What You Crave.
Hmm.
And so it's really at this point, I guess about 4 months old now as a nonprofit entity, but I started it as a passion project a couple years ago. And it essentially came from my background is that I have worked in the arts, mostly arts and culture and community building the past 15 years. And I've been located in Carmel, done a lot of work here at the Center for the Performing Arts. Then I worked at the city of Carmel in the community relations department. And I just have found like so much opportunity, especially in the creative field here in this city. I really owe the vision of the investment in the arts. I owe all of that, my whole career to that, really. I know we have so many options as far as how you can, go see a great performance or enjoy art at a gallery, visit with local artists. But what I was feeling I wanted was a space to really have a place to talk with others who loved that, who either were artists themselves in some way, shape, or form, or just loved it and wanted to talk about it and share ideas. And so that's kind of where it started because I said, well, I know we've got so many opportunities, but I just want to meet others and learn about just different ideas that we can, there's just always more that we can accomplish together. So that's how it started. And now it is a full nonprofit 501(c)(3). And our mission is to amplify the voice of local creatives and offer space for connection and inspiration. And we do this through events and media with the intention to build a community of creatives and also advocate for the arts. And so when we say a community of creatives, we really mean everybody is welcome. So it's whether you are actually like, in that process of making, maybe you've chosen that as a career, like if you are an artist or a writer or entrepreneur, or maybe you're just someone who really appreciates that. And so we all really belong together. And so that's kind of our goal. And we have events monthly, and we're really excited. We are based in Carmel, but we have a regional perspective. So we're just excited to make an impact and, hopefully make life more fulfilling for all of us.
I absolutely love it. And I'm so grateful that God gives like visions to people and that I'm so thankful that you were brave enough to act on it because I have no idea the dynamics and courage that it took to step out and like overcome maybe fear of like, oh, I'm going to start a nonprofit and like it is it's a significant need and especially having grown up in Westfield, I went through the K through 12 program and just um like yes, like the it's such a I don't mean to create a tangent, but like I love Italy for so many different reasons. I've never been, want to go. I joke every week about buying a villa there and just like renovating it and doing that whole thing. But
Ooh, love it.
um, I love how like I'm really thankful for Jim Bernard's like vision to bring that European architecture into downtown Carmel. And I realized that like the growing process for that for residents prior to being here was probably a lot. Like that's a significant change to a community. But as an artist, I find it so inspiring and I love the legacy and these different textures, I was going to say textiles, but just how they've designed that. And so to see the structure physically there, and we've got some elements of art, but we do still have the reality. And I don't want to paint a negative perception of Indiana or even Indianapolis and our creative community, but we aren't Chicago, we aren't New York. And so when it comes to being a fine art artist, I led with being a realtor for the purpose of this interview, but I also literally do attempt to do fine art.
Mhm.
And you know, there's my perception is that the strongest creative communities are going to be either downtown or maybe Broad Ripple, more within Marion County. And once you get outside of that, there is the reality that we have a lot of farmland, developing suburbs. And so it's just kind of the nature of development. And so I just share this as a fellow artist, and that I've tried to problem solve some of that with like art in Boone County. Like, can we get an art gallery or community center? I know that there's chatter potentially about a Whitestown art center at some point.
Good.
But as you know, like a lot of that is funding related or having the spaces available for that. So I have maybe more empathy for the community, and I appreciate deeply like what you're hoping to accomplish within that as a community resource, because like I said, the commute would be significant, and I appreciate like Hamilton County Community Artists Association and Noblesville Creates, they're trying to get stuff off the ground, but I love the idea that our artists can be within 15 to 20 minutes of each other, and like the collaboration that we can have more organically because we're not so far apart in that. So, is
Yeah.
that, do you resonate with any of that or have anything to add?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you kind of went naturally right into this. I mean, this is why we call the organization Create What You Crave. So when you think about like the inspiration that comes from the culture and the architecture and the arts in Italy, or what a lot of us, we all really kind of know this. It's like if you want to live a creative life or like have more opportunity, go to LA or Chicago or New York, or, there's a handful of cities that it's just known. And I've traveled there. Like, yeah, there is a lot more opportunity like for artists and for creatives. And so I've always felt like I mean, I've lived here. I grew up near Chicago, but have lived in Indianapolis since I went to Butler, like 20 years ago now. And so I'm here, I'm staying here. But I love to take inspiration trips. And I also see a lot of people, especially in my time working on Carmel, that a lot of people are moving here from LA, from New York, from Miami. And I think that is really interesting. It says a lot. But my hope is that the Create What You Crave title of our organization is really more than just our name. We really want it to be our mantra and an empowering, like guiding principle that encourages people that you don't have to leave. You don't have to go leave and do something. Or you don't have to even wait to be invited to the table to explore that idea that you want. So, me back when this was a passion project, I was doing this. I was like, I just want to know where my people are. And so I created what I craved. And so I'm hoping that in doing this and talking about it, it encourages others to do so. It's like, what is it from wherever city or some other experience that you've had that you would like to have here? Or whether I see it a lot in community building based on my experience and what we're hoping to do, but just personally too. If you just think about
Mhm,
like, I wish I had this one element in my life, or,
mhm.
I wish I was more creative. Well, like, then try something. It's one of those, it's an invitation. And so I relate completely, and I'm hoping that this can change a little bit of that.
Well, I guess what I'm ultimately saying is a huge thank you, because it's we only have so much time in the day, and I hate how that can become an excuse to avoid creating opportunities for others. Something that I'd love to, I'm aware that HCAA does open studio nights, and they offer a model to come sit, and you can practice some figure drawing, and it's a closed model, and so not too scandalous for those watching, but just there's foundational aspects of art, and I realize what you led with is more networking based or community based, but in supporting our creative talent, and that's specific to 2D in that example. But I'm hopeful that as we have these of conversations and needs are addressed within the creative community. Like it just seems unfortunate to me that once you leave university, if you had the fortunate opportunity to go through an art program at a university or college, that's basically it. Now, granted, you have Carmel and Fisher's libraries offering, or Fisher's Art Center kind of stepping in to fill that gap. There's Hub and Spoke on some level as well. But just that intentional branded, like, hey, here's an art studio space instead of like, okay, so like I've been like creating my own in-home studio. And I had this fun
Ooh,
reality of like buying art supplies and trying to recreate what I had in college as just like a prep surface and come and go and get stuff done. And like I went to buy a mat board or sorry, um like the rubber thing that you can cut paper on with an X-Acto knife. I'm
mm-hmm.
spacing on that word right now. It's not mat board, but it was like $50. Or some of these materials, like I bought what's called an art horse, which is terrible to search on Google for because it's basically like an H-shaped chair kind of where you can
Uh-huh.
put um your drawing board on and figure sketch or sketch from life on and
Yeah,
then sit. And so like finding that was impossible. But
right.
there's these studios will have this equipment and um I just think about like how to get into video and cameras can cost a lot. And so I'm hopeful that as our community can come together and maybe we can crowdsource a need or get grants or something like that, that we could
Mm.
provide more of that studio culture because that's where the magic happens. It's,
Mm.
oh, you're doing this.
It
Can I do this? And it's just the synergy that comes out of that is incredible. But you have to
I love
provide the
that.
environment.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, and I love that you are bringing up this idea because this is a great example of a topic that would be discussed at one of our events. And so, yeah, we are like we have two different types of events right now.
Mhm.
And one is kind of a social mixer meetup where it's really purely you come, you enjoy, you talk. And then we also encourage folks, all of our events are in the Arts and Design District right now. So we've
Mhm.
committed to doing monthly events every second Saturday. And that's actually in lieu of what used to be a multi-year long standing second Saturday gallery walk, which has had over the past years a couple multiple names, but most recently it was called Meet Me on Main that the city
Hmm.
produced. And so as of this year, they determined that they were no longer going to do that. And so when we heard about that, we thought, well, we're new, we're not like ready to replace it by any means, but we wanted to step up and say, like, we still want to honor this time standing tradition that multiple arts communities have as
Hmm.
honoring the district, and what makes the arts and design district an arts and design district of celebrating the arts. And so we've committed to having our events there. We've mostly had them at the two sort of larger galleries that have some more like space for larger crowds, which is Inner Circle Gallery, which is inside Circle Real Estate on Main Street, and then also at Kuwaba Gallery on Main Street as well, which is on kind of the west side by the um, the roundabout fountain.
Hmm.
And so we'll have those social events, and then we also do panel events where we really do. It's kind of like a almost like an educational but conversational, guided, um, moderated conversation. And we actually just did one about creativity and mental health. And
Hmm.
so our thought is that these topics will get people talking, and then it'll be sort of a catalyst to say, oh, you know what, we really should do something about that, or that idea is really great. And we also like to provide opportunities for artists. So at our last event, just for example, we had live painting by one of the artists there at Inner Circle Gallery. So he was demonstrating and kind of showing his process. And then we also like to bring in live musicians as well. So our hope is that we are also able to provide opportunity. We do record them, like you mentioned, video, like that whole studio vibe. That's what we want to try to create too.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we hope that what we can be is a catalyst to help get those conversations started. And then, we are still building our board, our founding board. So if anyone is interested in learning more about that or being a volunteer, that'll give us more resources to like be able to help with some of these ideas. But at the least, what we're doing is starting the conversation, amplifying the voice.
I think that's fantastic. And I've seen the couple that you started, and I'm like, oh, shoot. And then there was something previously scheduled. And, but yes, I love it. And so you said that you kind of touched on something that I think is really fascinating. And with your background previously working with the city, um, wearing the realtor hat for a minute, it's fascinating to me. I mean, just in marketing, to give up that title, Meet Me on Main, like how many times do you have to get something into someone's mind? Like, oh, it's like Carmel does this, and this is where I go, this is the expectation. And then we've gained national and maybe even international recognition from that in PR. And so I appreciate that you're trying to step in and like fill that gap of not have like the of the community not having that intentionality. But professionally, like how do you see, like do you agree with the decision and your time there? And I don't mean to make you uncomfortable with that, but I'm curious to be more informed as to, I hear like the perception was that maybe the events were stale, and they're wanting to refresh it. But what's your experience, like just to speak into that decision?
Yeah, well, so to be clear, I was have not worked for the city for I guess it's been like a year and a half or so. So I don't know the decision exactly of why they chose that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say totally, I see both sides. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that the event, um, there was even some confusion about like the title of Meet Me on Main. Like when I was
Mm.
actually working on it, it sounds very similar to Late Night on Main, which is a really successful
Oh,
event as
okay.
well. And
Yeah.
so I found that sometimes when I would say it and talk about it, they'd be like, "Oh, that's when the street closes down and you have like this big band." I said, "Oh, that's Late Night on Main." So I also think that, it was maybe a challenge of like calling it Meet Me on Main because it really originally was an arts walk. It was a gallery walk. So it sort of
Mm-hmm.
lost a little bit of the intention. And that was before I was there, So it was
Mm-hmm.
one of those times where I think like that was one thing that we wanted to infuse more. And we loved doing the events. But one of the things that I personally experienced, like we talked about going to other cities and being inspired, I went to Miami several years ago and I took a tour of their art district, and it was so fun. The tour guide,
Mm.
we were on a golf cart tour, and he
Okay.
was like showing us everything, and he's like, "Yeah, this is our official arts district, Miami's official arts district." And I was like,
Mm.
"Well, who gave you that designation?" And he's like, "What do you mean? The people." So, so he said, "The people, obviously." And I
Uh,
thought, wow, that's so different because we were really lucky in Carmel that it was kind of a top-down decision, right? And I think, like you
mm-hmm.
touched on in the beginning,
Yeah.
may have had mixed opinions as far as, when a community is transformed and changes so much and so quickly like it did, but you can't deny that it was a complete transformation and has had huge positive economic development improvements and, really did a
Yeah.
lot for the city, the state, the region. But I think I go back to that and I think, well, what is our community doing to own the arts and design district or to own that event?
Mm-hmm.
So I think of it less as, who should do it and what is it going or is it not? Some people still think it's going. In fact, it kind of is because a lot of arts galleries are still doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And so the difference is there's, some programming that's not continued, and then the marketing, I would say. And so
Yeah.
I don't think that we as a community really need to um, let it. I mean, it's hard because on the one hand, it's what
Yeah.
we've been used to. But on the other hand, maybe it's an opportunity to kind of look at it a little bit differently and
Yeah.
you know, get more ownership behind it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I see both sides of it as well. I think that the priorities are to, in concept, reduce spending to hopefully lower taxes and put less burden on our residents to channel things, but that does come at a cost. And if it's purely a dollars and cents approach, that you could argue, well, um, like I was informed at a gallery that like, oh, uh, the rent subsidy is going to end by the state. And by that point, we want you to be self-sustaining. And so it's like, okay, if this is a cooperative gallery that maintains a profit status just for the purpose of paying utility bills and maybe not having to go through all the red tape of operating a nonprofit, um, that, okay, so if you're a for-profit business, that makes grants ineligible, which means if
Mm-hmm.
you're cooperative and it's volunteer based, now you're putting the stress on those creatives to come up with whatever that gap would be to fulfill whatever that new lease term would be. And that's prime residential real estate. And so if the problem cannot be solved, whatever that would look like, um, to find an agreeable solution, is there a reality where the gallery might have to move? And
Mm-hmm.
that removes the whole point of that district. And
Yeah.
so, um, like, and it's kind of inspired like a thought process of like, okay, I wonder before the art galleries came in, what was the tourism rate like? What was the economic investment like? Um, and since then, in marketing, how is that, since those have been established, how much has skyrocketed? And so I see it less as, okay, like these are leeches, and I don't know if they would necessarily call it that, but it's like, okay, here's entities who are receiving taxpayer funding, and is this really necessary? Should we be supporting them? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that I can't speak for the previous leadership, but my wonder is, did they see that as more of an investment? And in turn, it paid off. And so I think like I don't want to be hard-headed about the decision, um, other than just my hope is that through this change that we're experiencing and the shifting attention, the shifting expectations, that the creative community, which I think could be possible through something like your nonprofit, is that the instead of us focusing on bringing like contributing our time and resources to making art, now it's making art and trying to make sure that we can keep the space. Whereas when
Mm-hmm.
we had that preset programming, it wasn't something that we had to worry about as much in a value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the ownership is good. The cooperative hat is a whole different way of navigating that because, but even before this thought process I was made aware of, I was like, okay, like, the gallery's kind of small, but could you host events? And even at that,
Mm-hmm.
like, but the space is small. And so I'm wondering, like, down the road, if the turnover, if unfortunately that would have to happen, if it would mean like a blessing in disguise, because could it push the gallery into a bigger space where we could do more or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to maintain a lens of optimism with it. But I think that that is the other side of the coin potentially is that the more stress you put on ownership, where art naturally is not a career that you can maintain exclusively, it just takes like with everything you say yes to, you're also saying no to something else. So um, I'm grateful that that you're stepping up and into that space. And I'm hopeful that as more of the community does become aware that there is more intentionality to show up and support and be intentional with the local galleries, because especially like if 50% of the traffic that walks through is tourism, that there's that known intentional meeting of community. So I hope
Mhm.
that that all makes sense, and I'm curious for your feedback and how that you see that being fulfilled within Create What You Crave.
Yeah, yeah, you bring up a lot of really, really valid points. And so a couple things that you said I wanted to follow up on, which is, first of all, I'm so glad we're having this conversation because I know you and I connected briefly, like on social media about this question of like, well, what's happening now on the monthly events? And like we are such a baby organization that, I did mention two galleries that we are hosting events at, but I would love to chat with you more. And I hope that this conversation is just the start of like more. And so I think that, maybe what this means is like more collaborations. But I agree with you. It's one of those like, okay, well, now let's just add this to the list, and which detracts from, our true, like, as an artist, like you talk about the true gift and skill, right, that you have and want to bring to this world. But what I really hope that Create What You Crave can serve is in a way for arts advocacy. So what, other people, maybe not just the artists who are making the art, but who love it and care about it, can also step up for this. It's not just one person, it's not just one organization, it's not just one, government. It's like multiple people to say, like, hey, this matters. And issue isn't really, unfortunately, it's not unique to where we are. It's happening on a national scale. The value of the arts is just questioned, and, even when I was studying arts administration at Butler. I mean, I remember, I think this kind of thing kind of hits me to my core a little bit because when I was, I guess, a junior in Indianapolis, they had just made a big arts budget cut. And this was in, like, I guess, 2008. So interesting timing as far as, what was going on with the economy then. But I remember our professor said, hey, this is happening. Like, students, do you guys have any ideas? And I was like, I don't know, but we need to unite and form a club. So then I created our first like official arts administration club. And I like I'm looking back, I'm like, I think this is what I like want to be doing all the time because we need it. We just arts
Mhm.
advocacy, we need it. And luckily, there are a lot of great entities, like you mentioned, Noblesville Creates. Pattern is another one that's a statewide organization that's championing the creative economy. And so no one should do it alone. No artist should feel alone. No organization should feel alone. But we should be talking and loudly
Mhm.
about how important this is. And it's all of our jobs to really be arts advocates. And that's as easy as going to the art gallery, buying some artwork, talking to your local artists. And it's not just about visual art, but that is certainly one area that, when we talk about arts and design district, that, is really important. But yeah, how can we all step up and become arts advocates? And, what can we do as a community to showcase how important this is and, showcase the value that it did bring to our city and that we hope that it continues to bring.
Yeah, it's really interesting as a Christian to sit in a position and have both hats of like my background in real estate and then being an artist and like just hearing the different conversations of the argument, like what a builder or a developer is going to be thinking about in their decision making. And I'm not criticizing that. And then what the art community needs or the positive impact that arts in general bring to people that do contribute to economic benefit. And I don't think that there's ever, I would be really disappointed if anyone in leadership or as a business owner said arts don't matter. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just that being highly pragmatic when it comes to dollars and cents, and then you sit on the side of the fence with, okay, like we need affordable housing, and how can we do that? And if it's purely about production and making things as accessible and attainable, that's going to come down to dollars and cents. And my point to connect with this is we're seeing um, you might have heard just through conversation, like people are really tired of this neutral design plan, like design colors. They're tired of the
Mhm.
grays. Like there is a craving for color, and we're seeing that kind of explode with what one designer called Grand Millennial, and I love it.
Mhm.
Where it's like this cottage core infusion and I think also too, like people are just owning their personality and not caring about resale value and what the HCTV shows used to recommend and just letting like home be home for them.
Yeah.
Speaking of home, a bird wants to come in my home. That's awesome. Uh, so my point is that I think like the production was like, let's make it as affordable and have everything be the same, which is why you see siding in some subdivisions or townhomes be all the same. It's cheaper to buy in bulk, but at the same time, it comes at a cost. And then when you drive by, it's like, oh my gosh, that looks like a jail. And so the connection is like we're seeing some mental health or higher rates of depression and anxiety. And let's look at what the palette is in prisons. There's a reason that palette exists. And so to just kind of infuse this conversation between real estate, art, and the community, it's really interesting to sit in this position. And I'm really thankful. Um, I don't know, it's kind of a kind of all coming together moment just to
Mhm.
witness. And um, yeah, if nothing else, I'll just be praying for the right network to come together and support with this because our youth need it. That's an interesting decision to make, and I understand the financial motivation for it with 2008. But being a kid during a recession did have impacts, and
Mhm.
you know, art is a very healthy way to, or even for adults, to
Oh yeah.
experience therapy and avoid health problems. And so, um, I think like we're coming up on our time here for the interview, but I think what I've heard from you is that you're meeting second Saturdays every month. Uh, if people are interested, like maybe let's take this kind of in a pragmatic step. Like let's say that our audience watching this highly resonates, wants to get involved, wants to support you either financially, connecting in person, sharing your content online. Um, what are your goals? And how can we support you?
Thank you. Yeah, well, the best way to just, if you're looking for one step, it's visit our website at createwhatyoucrave.org. So that will have all the links to everything, which has the list of all of our events. We really hope that you join us and just kind of learn more about what we're about. You know, we want to meet you and we want to hear your ideas and your thoughts. So that's really one of our goals is to just meet those who are out in our community that have an interest in this. So yeah, on our website, we've got all of our events. We have ways to donate as well. And so we also are looking for additional founding board members. And we have volunteer opportunities. So anything you might know about a nonprofit, we have those needs. And so yeah, we're really looking to grow our impact. And so I think just checking out our website and from there you can email us as well at info@createwhatyoucrave.org. So if you have any ideas or thoughts or questions, we don't have all the answers, but we're hoping that we can pull them together, or introduce you to the right person, or maybe you introduce us to the right person. But yeah, we're just really hoping that we can help further this conversation. And then I think there's so many really great resources out there as well. Just one thing that you were talking about, I encourage everyone to look up Amy McNee. So she is an author, and wrote the book, We Need Your Art. And it's
Mhm.
essentially talking about just how important it is, to be creating in any way. And kind of going back on your concept of how important it is for our health and for our well-being and just so many benefits of it. And so just encourage everyone to tap into their own inner creative and look into this. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Sure. And I also want to make sure that we're clear. So your organization provides networking and community for artists. Are there any events that are for someone who's not an artist? Um, like, are there any events that are quote public facing that you intend to
Yes.
host or promote? And I want to make sure that we highlight that.
Yeah, they're actually all public hosting for everybody.
Okay.
So really the intent is that it's for anybody who either like feels like they are a creative in some way. And there's a lot of folks that say like, well, I don't know that that's me. I don't know that I resonate with that. And I realize some people resonate with that no matter what their job or life looks like. And then the others who don't resonate with someone who mentioned that to me was on the board of a creative nonprofit. And I said, you are obviously very creative. So it's if you like the arts or are see a value in that, then
Mm,
you're here. Everyone is really welcome. And so yeah, our events are for everybody. They're for the public. And so the second Saturday events, they're from 4 to 6 p.m. We welcome everyone, and it's just it's fun actually because it's a conversation starter. It's like
mhm.
you people either have a whole story about their way to express their own creativity, and then others are like, I don't know, maybe tell me more about it. I need to explore a little bit. And
Yeah.
it's all good.
Yeah. Well, Annie, I know I could talk your ear off about this interview. I hope that if, for those of you watching, that you feel inspired, that you feel really reassured that, even if you're not downtown, here in Indianapolis, that there are not only a lot of resources, but I think especially for Hamilton County, a very systematized way to get plugged in, to meet other creatives, and to start that networking, or going back to synergy and just collaborate and let that inspire you. And you don't have to be a full-time artist or even a professional artist. I think that the more that we just show up and contribute our presence, that there is something incredibly sacred and inherent about that. So anyway, thank you for providing that for our community, Anne, and I hope that many of you feel inspired watching this and take action to support your local arts, even if you're not here in Indy. Go buy a painting or print, whatever your budget can allow, or consider incorporating local arts in your business, because it is important and does have economic benefits. So thank you, Anne.
Thank you.